This is a $250 Yeti Hopper soft cooler. I won this at a car show about 5 years ago. And this is a $500 Oyster aluminum cooler. They sent me this for review, claiming that it is about 300% more efficient than the most efficient Yeti. And the Hopper obviously isn't the most efficient, but I thought I would run a test and just see in a real world scenario how efficient this Oyster cooler really is. One advantage the Yeti does have is it's not having to cool nearly as much space as it is a smaller cooler. Alternatively, the Oyster, let me get this right, is it's not only is it, well, I guess they claim it's more efficient, but it's also much more space efficient. A lot of room inside the cooler, and its exterior dimensions are not that much bigger than the Yeti. So anyways, I'm gonna fill each with equal amount of ice, put some Cokes in there, and then I'm gonna move these coolers from my office out to my shop, which does not have HVAC, and then every few hours we'll run a temperature test and see which one's doing the best. Okay, it's only been about 45 minutes, but I thought we should take some baseline readings. In the Oyster, get this gun fired up here. We're at about 27 degrees. And in the Yeti, this gun is not great. Okay. Yeti, it's about 27 degrees as well. So that's our baseline, 27 degrees. And I'll check back in, I don't know, 6 hours? All right, we're 6 hours in. Let's see where we're at. Looks like the Oyster is right at 32 degrees. And the Yeti is at 34 degrees. So that's 6 hours in. I'll check back in 12. Okay, so it's 12 hours later, had to sleep. That's 18 hours after we initially filled these with ice. So let's see where we are. All right, we are at 33 degrees in the Oyster. Lots more ice melted in the Yeti. We are at 50 degrees, no. Let's call it 45 degrees in the Yeti. So 18 hours in, the Oyster is definitely outperforming the Yeti. Okay, we are now at 24 hours since I filled these things up. So let's take our measurements. Okay, it looks like we are at 32 degrees. Not a lot of water in there on the Oyster. Now the Yeti, oh, a lot more water. We are at, let's call it 41 degrees. So 24 hours in, we've got a 9-degree temperature difference. Okay, we are at 30 hours now. So let's check the Oyster. Trying to do this at the tops of the cans in the same spot every time. And the Oyster is at, let's call it, it's bouncing between 31 and 33, so let's call it 32. Obviously, I keep these buttoned up. I open them before I start the video just to make it easier. Again, on the Yeti. Bouncing between 45 and 47, so let's call it 46. Okay, so it looks like the Oyster is definitely more efficient, but I'm gonna check back with y'all in about 12 hours and see where we are. I gotta go to bed. We are now at 42 hours, so let's check it out. More water finally in the Oyster. But we're still at 30, 34, 35, 37. Let's call it 35. And then in the Yeti, no more ice. Let's see what we're at. We are at 58. So I think it's safe to call the Yeti's done after 42 hours. The Oyster is still pretty cold, but how long will it be cold? All right, so life got in the way. We are at 48 hours now since we iced these things up. The Yeti is pretty much at room temperature. Let's see where the Oyster is. Still has lots of ice, surprisingly. And the Oyster is it's bouncing between 32, well, it's between 35 and 37 degrees, so we'll say 36. 48 hours, still really cold. That's impressive. 57 hours, and this experiment is starting to wear on me. Let's see where we're at. Finally starting to get some water. Looks like it's fluctuating. Well, it's right at, there we go. It's still 35 degrees, man. 69 hours. Still 35 degrees. 93 hours, and I've been monitoring it pretty closely the last 4 or 5 hours. I decided when I started this that my cutoff for coldness was going to be around 45 degrees, because to me that's when you get a Coke or a beer. It tastes cold sort of at first, but after your third or fourth sip it's not cold anymore. So 45 was my cutoff, for better or worse. Anyways, we are very, very close here to losing all effectiveness. The last hour that I checked it, it was at 44. So I'm thinking we're probably about there. There's hardly any ice left. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, we are at 47, 48 degrees. So there you go. 93 hours of effectiveness. That is one expensive cooler, but man, it works well.